Welcome to RCS. I'm Dan.
And I'm Nick.
We're recording live at Haggerty Garage and Social tonight. It's a nice, quiet evening in.
Yeah, as always, we are brought to you by Avant, Carter Motors, Griot's Garage. Always use RCS 10 for 10% off your next order. Haggerty, Let's Drive Together, Salvo Design, and York Team.
How you been? Settled in?
I'll tell you, yeah. I'm over it now. It's grumble, rah, rah, rah. So, yeah. Everything is in. Stuff is in storage. I figured it out. I actually sold a piece of furniture. My cabinet is going to stay with me for now.
Okay.
It fit in that little nook in the kitchen by literally a half of an inch.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, getting it in there was a little bit interesting because only two of the wheels have casters, so I had to put it on like sliders. But that was a task. So, but it's good. Other than that, life has been so busy. It's just like. Yeah. You blink. Like you and I were laughing. You and I had a little meeting this week, and I was like, I feel like I haven't seen you in forever, and it's like just two ships in the night. So every once in a while,
really.
Yeah, I know. No, it's just like we get together for this, which is good.
Yeah, and we have the Avant Off-Road event this weekend, Saturday.
It's random.
Oh, it's York.
Yeah. So
we'll talk to Ray in a second.
Yeah.
Avant Off-Road this Saturday. We usually talk about stuff at the end, but I want to make sure people are aware of that you don't need to be a member and you don't need to go off-roading to come join us and come say hi. It'll probably be raining, but that'll just make the day more interesting out at Dirtfish. And of course, we will get a lot of hot dogs on our Costco run tomorrow.
Oh yeah, we do need a lot of hot dogs. I forgot
about that. A lot of hot dogs are going to be coming your way tomorrow. So we look forward to seeing everybody this Saturday.
And it's a morning, just so we're
clear. It's a regular event. Yeah. Just go to avants.com, check out the events, and you'll see the off-road event for the 19th, which will be the day after this.
That'll be so much fun.
Yeah,
it'd be nice to get out there. Yeah.
Speaking of that, you should if you're going to do some off-roading stuff. I had somebody request this, so I'm going to do it. We've talked about this in many different forums in the Carter Subaru tip of the week. Mm-hmm. Carter Automotive Group, excuse me.
That too.
It's just Carter Subaru in my head because
it's always been Carter Subaru. Yeah, I know.
Subaru, Acura, Volkswagen. Anyway, so somebody asked me about dash cams. I was like, well, we've covered dash cams. So I was like, yeah, but like, what about a GoPro? What about using my cell phone on the mount? Like, should I have it outside the car? Is there an advantage to one of these? And I said, okay, they're actually very different use cases for each one. One, you don't want a GoPro for your dash cam for a couple of reasons. One, it's going to take up a ton of SD card space. And yes, you can loop it and program it to do that. And it has great resolution, great frame rates. So like, well, why wouldn't you want that? Well, for one, it's not shock sensitive. It's not G sensitive. And dash cams are designed to record in typically no more than 5 to 10 minute increments. And that's a positive because when you hit like you slam on your brakes or you accelerate really hard or you just manually hit the button, you can mark, save it, and prevent overwrite of that file. A GoPro, you would have to literally physically stop, turn it off, make sure the footage is there.
Some of them are even voice control now.
You can voice control a GoPro, as well. So, but it's a use case specific device. And as we've gone through this before, you don't get what you pay for in dash cams. The $150 dash cam, the Viofo A119 V3, actually performs just as well as the $500 thinkware. The cloud storage backup solutions that they're offering where they automatically back up using your cell connection are nice, but actually really buggy in every test I've seen. Even the $500-$600 ones don't live up to the hype, unfortunately.
Well, and you want a clear video. That's the point of a dash cam.
Yeah, and so again, look for frame rate there. So 60 frames per second versus 30 frames per second. And then resolution doesn't have to be as high as you think it is. 2K or 1440p is typically the sweet spot for resolution on a dash cam and a wide field of view. So anyway, when would you use the GoPro? The GoPro is great for events like the Avant Off-Road event. When you want to record a full session in really high resolution, you're okay with leaving it outside your vehicle. Again, it's going to get covered in mud at one of these, so you may want to put it inside in the windshield where it can wipe away the mud. Yeah. But they can take the abuse for that, and you'll get really high frame rates, like 4K, 120 frames per second, and you're going to make media with it. It's about the best solution out there. Talking about other action cameras, there's still a couple lingering around. The DJI one looks pretty good. GoPro for now, still the best game in the business, especially with their cloud storage deal because those files are massive. They're the one to go to. The reason you don't use your cell phone in a mount is one, if your cell phone can get interrupted. If a call comes in, especially if somebody FaceTimes you, that'll interrupt your video signal on your phone most of the time, even if you're recording. You can change that in settings, but just so you know, it's just not a reliable enough device for a dash cam. Also, we've talked about this before, the stability on the camera will burn out. If it'll constantly be focusing in and out.
Did you know you can do that on a motorcycle, Dan?
You can.
If you're not careful?
Yeah. Even when it's not in use, you need a vibration dampening mount to run a cell phone and record video from a car mounted. And there's only a handful of companies do that. Quadlock is the only one we recommend. They specialize in it. But yeah, it's really not an ideal device for track recording. Yes, you can do it, but you shouldn't. it'll work for a while, and it's much better on a track, which is a nice smooth surface. But eventually, those micro vibrations while your camera's recording, and because like holding it's one thing, going in a track at 150 miles an hour is a whole other thing.
Yeah, don't hold your phone.
A lot of different vibration when it's mounted there, so not the ideal device for that. So when you use your phone when you're recording while standing still and holding it, and yes, other phones can do more, but again, like I said, we've seen them burn out firsthand, so don't do that.
And I want to add something to this, and even though I didn't know you were going to talk about this, but I created somewhat of an online issue with not an issue. So I've been in a lot of the new forums for the Subaru Wilderness. Well. Mm-hmm. You have to be very careful where you mount a dash cam in a Subaru, because if you have all the new cars have eyesight, mm-hmm. and you can't block the eyesight, so you have to be. And I was asking people if they had done it, and several people had, and some had said that they didn't. It didn't matter, which was not true. Just so we're
if
clear.
You mount it on the outside, yeah, you can block the sensors.
Well, no, but if you mount the dash cam inside next to those sensors, it can be in an area where Subaru doesn't want it and can affect the driving situation.
Does it affect the radar?
Basically, if you go into your owner's manual, they show you a visual picture of where you're supposed to not put stuff in your dash, because, I told you that car will basically drive itself if I want it to. And so you don't want to put anything in the sight, even where I'm figuring this out, I've got to order a new sticker for the tolls as far as lodging it up and closer to the mirror so it's not in the way of blocking, because you don't want anything blocking that, or those sensors will be unadjusted. Like, I'm even having to look into it in the fact that there's wheels and tires coming from my car, and as you raise the car, you have to have the eyesight adjusted. So,
They replace your windshield, they got to realign it too.
Yeah. And so but I'm just saying, be careful. I mean, any systems like that, you want to be careful with where you're putting stuff to make sure you're not blocking cameras. I mean, your car will let you know real quickly, but if you mount something in your car, then all of a sudden. So
I remember that was an issue with the good to go passes, because some mirrors have photochromic sensors on the back. Now they're usually up high, like toward the top of the windshield, but they used to be like on a few cars right actually in the mirror. They housed it in the mirror housing, and it would block it. People wouldn't notice it there, and then it would block it from I think it was automatic light control in that case that was blocking, but
still. So
it's kind of funny. Transitioning into our guest today, we do have a guest we're welcoming back. We're very excited about that. The best case for a GoPro, my favorite use for one, is time-lapse footage from a road trip, because in time-lapse mode with a constant power source, you can hardwire USB-C to a new camera. You can get, 1,000-mile drive in about 10 minutes.
And you can get outdoor-proof USB-C cords, correct?
Not officially from GoPro, but...
No, but I'm saying from other people as far as...
Yes, and I have torture tested mine.
Yes.
I have literally submerged my camera with one on, forgetting about it. I didn't do it intentionally. I forgot that it was plugged in, and it still worked just fine. So that's not... I wouldn't say that is it okay. It's not designed to do that, but they do hold up really well.
And GoPro has a case that you can pass the cable through that's supposed to somewhat waterproof it a little, or water...
It's still pretty water resistant, I found.
Yeah, that's nice.
I doused it in a river once.
Okay.
So. But yeah.
Fair.
Speaking of road trips, though, the last time we had Justin Osmer on the show, he did a massive road trip with his RS6 Avant, which we were all, of course, very jealous of. And I'm still jealous of, because that is the ultimate road trip car. But he's done a lot since then, including help with the launch of Forza 5, Horizon 5.
But he wouldn't share those things with us last time.
Right.
Because he was
stupid
sworn
NDAs.
To secrecy and had seen things that no other people had seen.
Yeah. Which if you haven't checked out, there's no doubt, it is the best driving simulator game I've ever played. Hands down. I mean, there's racing simulators, which Horizon, of course, is not really that compared to Forza itself. But it's the most fun. It's massive open world, like the best cars. They knocked it so far out of the park, there's no competition.
I downloaded it this weekend. It's been forever since I've downloaded one. And I realized that, you click a point and it's going to take you there. I don't think I've ever followed the route. I just drive off the side of the road, literally in a Bronco, and just go. And the only problem I've had is when cactuses are going up over the hood, and then all of a sudden there's a nicely placed rock that you stop real quickly. So, but other than that, it's Welcome to the show, by the way.
Well, thanks for having me back, you guys. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate you having me.
So, I mean, on that topic, well, last time we were talking about this, and I don't think had you left Forza yet?
I had just left, yeah.
And you worked with them and Ford with the Bronco, correct?
Yeah, so timeline-wise, the end of 99, December of
2019.
2019,
yeah.
sorry. 99.
I was like, that's a long negotiation. You knew about the Bronco in 90?
Yeah. 2019, that would be. COVID, it just changed our reference points for time.
Yes.
December of that year was my last time at Microsoft. Took a year off to basically just take a break, and then founded a company in January of 2021 that is doing marketing consulting in the automotive space. So before I left Forza, we had started the conversations around Horizon 5 and what the cover car was going to be, and had met with Ford and seen the Bronco in a clay buck.
Oh, wow.
And when I was with you guys, obviously couldn't talk about that yet because the Bronco hadn't even really been announced and the game hadn't been announced, any of that stuff. But that was the last project that's come to life since I've left. That's super cool to see. So on the cover, there's the AMG Mercedes Concept 1, and then in the background is the Bronco. And so we were out at Dearborn in their design center and saw the 2-door, the 4-door in clay form, and then in clay form, but then painted and looked like it was sheet metal, and was just super cool. Walk through them with the designers, talk about all the things they were trying to do, what their reference points were against the competition, and what they were hoping to bring to the market. So it was super cool to see it come to life in the game, but then also to see it in real life on the road now too. So it's just one of those cool moments where you get to see something early and can't talk about it, can't take any pictures of it, but then to see it come to life is pretty cool.
Bronco doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, and the crazy thing was we were in the design center and they walked us by some, they're big rooms with like movable walls, right? Like just on casters.
Was this is this kind of like the same place they designed the GT?
No, it was not in the bunker that we've been in before.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think we shared that story. I know Alan shared that story with you guys. No, this was in the upstairs design center. Same building, but upstairs design center. And so they quickly shuttled us by this one area that was sort of cordoned off, and all they would tell us was it was Mustang related, and that was the Mach-E.
Oh, yeah.
So
they
were working on that and working on the Bronco in that room at the same time, and it was just a cool experience.
That's an awesome experience. Yeah. I mean, to be able to kind of see things ahead of time, but I couldn't do that. I couldn't because there's no way. And it wouldn't be intentional. I always say, like, I'd be sitting and be like, just wait till the Bronco comes out. And somebody like, what? Nothing. I didn't say nothing.
What Bronco? There's no Bronco.
There's no Bronco. Yeah, I'm buying a horse.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, well, Forza and Turn 10 has had a special relationship with Ford since the Ford GT launch. I'm glad to see it continue. It was great to see the Bronco out there, and it's more fun to drive it. Probably more fun to drive in the game than on the road currently. So.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Always amazes me. We've talked about this before. Like, I mean, the fact that we saw when Koenigsegg was in town with the Jesko and the car, and it was here, and then all of a sudden you see it in the game, and I'm like, that was in town so they could measure that car. Like,
yes,
that is so cool. Like,
they drove it over and put it in the top of the parking garage and did all the measurements. And that same day you guys saw it was the day.
Then they came parked it here. Yeah, so we unfortunately had to hang out with it and sit in it. It was horrible.
It's a terrible day.
Yeah, it was a terrible day. So
But no, the game, the Playground team, the Turn 10 team did an amazing job bringing that next Horizon game to market, and the map is just enormous, and the graphics are just incredible. So I'm really happy for all of them over there at the studios.
It's such a fun game.
Yes. Yeah, if you're like me and hadn't played a racing game, like really sat down and played one in a long time, this will bring you back. And all the Horizon games are fun, but this one is just so big. Yeah, it makes the last Horizon just feel small, which is saying a lot because that was days of full throttle exploring.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I quick travel all over the map. It's just too far to drive. Yeah.
I like to explore just to see what's there.
I do. Yeah. I'm just saying that I focus on finding those fast travel boards, knocking all of them out so that I can travel for free, and then we're off to the races. But
and they do such a good job of the tracking too. New roads discovered.
That's so much fun.
Areas discovered, so you can tick off and try and get as many of those as you can.
I remember it jogged a funny old gamer memory. I was a big World of Warcraft person back in the day when it came out, and I was the one who just wanted to see where everything was. It was the open world was this new concept, so I would like go around the entire map. I'd be a druid, turn into a flight form, and then finally I could just explore endlessly. And I found myself doing that again and again, which is rare for me since that Skyrim and now of all games Horizon 5.
There you
go.
Which
is sort of a weird concept. Let's take our first break. When we come back, I want to talk to you more about what you're doing now with Turn Point Consulting, because you've been busy. We've seen some of your videos. We will share those in this episode notes. If you haven't seen them, we're going to tell you why you should definitely watch them when we come back.
We spend an average of 8 hours and 41 minutes a day facing screens. Laptops, smartphones, tablets, even digital refrigerators. But what are we really connected to? Isn't it time you connected to something greater? Sometimes the best way to connect is to disconnect. This moment of escape was created by Haggerty. For people who love cars.
And we're back. So, I mean, obviously, you decided to walk away from Forza and on to new adventures, you said. You took a year off.
Yep.
And then you started a new business. Tell us a little bit about that.
Started a new business called Turn & Point Consulting, basically bringing together my passion around the automotive category, around marketing, and around partnerships, and just trying to help people out. So
doing what you're good at.
Yeah, so I had that year off, and I had a number of people that I had worked with at Forza reach out to me and say, hey, can you help us with this or that project? And I was like, well, I'm really actually trying to take this year off, but, let's stay in touch. Yeah. And so then,
I want a vacation.
Yeah. So then made the decision to fire that thing up in January of last year. So it's just been just over a year. And first sort of official client was the Peterson Museum. And
so you aimed small.
Stepped in, stepped in to help them out with a video. Just it was really more luck on my part because of COVID. They couldn't travel. Some of their team couldn't travel, and so the team down there reached out to me and said, "Hey, we know you can do stuff on camera. We know the Dirtfish folks. Would you mind doing this thing for us for a day?" I said, "No problem."
Yeah, twist my arm. Sure, I'll go hang out with them, but I mean, it's going to cost you.
Yeah. So I'll come back. We can come back to that in a second.
Yeah.
But did some work with them. Did a 4-month stint at Motor Trend, which was really interesting. Working remote, so I didn't have to move down to LA, but got to help them with their advertising and partnership platform, which was super interesting. Did some work for Petrolicious. With their partnerships, and then now doing some work with Grid Life, which is basically an amateur racing sanctioning body that puts on real-life Horizon events. They do 2 big festivals a year with music and time attack and autocross and all of that. They're based in the Midwest. That's where they have sort of their stronghold, but they're trying to expand. And then they run dozens of other events around the country. And they have an esports element as well. So they brought me in to help them talk about that and figure out what they can do with that. They've had some success with it. So super cool. We'll definitely check out Grid Life on YouTube if you haven't seen it or unfamiliar with it. It's a really great form of racing and really good way for people to get started in the sport.
Interesting. And where are they based out of again?
They're based in Chicago.
Chicago, okay.
But they've got races and events kind of sprinkled all over certainly the Midwest, but they've got some tentacles reaching further out from there.
How long have they been around?
They've been around officially for probably just over 8 years or so, okay. 7 or 8 years.
I remember hearing about it, but I think it was in passing, so I wasn't too sure what it was.
Yeah. So Grid Life.
Grid Life. Okay.
So give them a shout. Check them out. But yeah. So and then working on some other little startups and other things that I can't talk about. But maybe I'll see you again.
Why do you always do that to us?
But I like the teasers, though. You're always doing something cool.
But it's been fun. Yeah. Thank you. It's been a good experience being out on my own. Definitely missed the team back at Turn 10, but it's been a good run so far, hitting year 2 now. So, and then finally the Peterson project came to be. So when I think it was last year, we had just shot it like the week before, and met Carl out there, and he said, "Oh, you got to come and tell the guys, And I said, "Well, I can't say a lot, but I'm happy to come."
I don't know anything.
So had a great opportunity to be with Steve Rimmer and his awesome collection of rally cars out at Dirtfish. Peterson was basically piloting this new show called Global Garages, where they're going around and looking at collections. And they were trying to make it more than just a look at all the car collection show. They wanted to get to know the individual that owned the cars and how it came to be, and then talk more about, seeing the cars in motion and using the cars. And so they'd done 4 or 5 episodes sort of around the country, and got put in touch with Steve and the folks at Dirtfish and said, yeah, we'd love to come do one with you. As I mentioned, their staff couldn't travel because of COVID, so I stepped in and was happy to kind of host that episode for them. And they got so much content, they turned it into a 2-part episode. So there's part 1 and part 2. Basically, part 1 is us kind of drooling all over the cars, and then part 2 is them driving the cars out on the course. Steve's kids come out; they're part of it too, which is really great. His daughter and his son. are both driving.
Yeah,
cars.
we've had her on the show. So,
Yeah.
She's a hoot.
Yeah,
she's a
great.
hoot. And so yeah, it was great fun. And as Steve says in the video, it was one of the first times he's had all those cars in one place at one time, which was amazing to me. But just to see
that's
that
a good problem to
collection is
have. Like,
amazing.
I didn't have ever had all my cars together.
Yeah.
Yeah, for our listeners who haven't seen Dirtfish, there's a giant. It's based on old Weyerhaeuser property, and there's a giant, massive barn. That's an understatement. It's basically a warehouse.
Well, it's they call it the planer building because that's where they actually planed the wood down.
Yeah,
so
like
they
an
would have
entire
this
tree.
Huge, gigantic building.
And so it looks awesome because it looks like something straight out of Horizon. Honestly,
Yeah.
like it could be. I think Dirtfish is in. It's in one of the Forzas, isn't it?
No,
it's
unfortunately not.
It's in another game. Anyway, but yeah, it would make the perfect.
I think it's in the Dirt, one of the Dirt series.
Games. Yeah. But yeah, it's the perfect course. So you look out there and you just get that feel of like, I want to drive this. And
you can drift through that barn. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Well, when the Rally Cross guys were here a number of years ago, that was the straightaway. They'd rip through there and come back around.
Now, is that the same series with Peterson that Peter Gleason did?
No, a little bit different.
That was a different. Okay,
different. I forget the title of that one, but
he did kind of the same. He did it on his own, but
yeah, and that one was basically they just told him what to do, and I think they even sent him a camera.
Yeah, they sent him an Osmo, and he walked around with it, which was great. It was great to watch. But I didn't know if that was part of that same series, but yeah,
a little bit different series. Basically, they're just trying to throw a lot of content up and see what sticks, and so they spent. We shot that. They shot the other ones, and then they basically spent last year sort of selling it to different streaming services and different platforms, and I don't think anyone bit, so they just threw them up on YouTube. So
it's still automotive joy watching those things. I mean,
it's a fantastic series, and I loved what I saw. It was it's fun, and if you don't know Steve Rimmer of Dirtfish, he's just a really great guy, and the guy you see on the camera is the guy you see in person. Just super nice, easy to talk to, loves cars, loves people who love cars. Like can't say enough good things about Dirtfish up there.
Yeah, well, and anybody in the Northwest that's been to a car event has probably seen one or two of his cars at some point.
Right.
But to see them all together is a bit mind blowing.
You've also probably stood next to him and never realized it.
Yes,
he's so humble and quiet, and it's
yep.
Yeah.
Are you going to be doing more of that for Peterson, or
I would hope
be all
so.
over?
I would hope so. We're still in touch, and I love the team down there, and I love the LeMay as well. But the Peterson is just kind of one notch up above. If you haven't been down to the Peterson in Los Angeles, definitely worth a visit on any sort of family vacation. Take an afternoon and head over there because it's a pretty spectacular space.
Yeah, they've got that big supercar, hypercar display right now.
Yeah.
A ton of stuff down there. I mean, some cars from around the world, they're just incredible. So
Yeah. And back real quick to Horizon, too. When the game launched, they had some of the cars in-game on display there, too, which was kind of fun. So they had the racing Bronco and a few other cars, so it's kind of cool.
I love that racing Bronco. I have put more miles on that car. Like, it's just and not only that, but I have it in the Lego form too. So because Lego made one, so
that's perfect, right? Yeah.
So
Peterson's great. Hopefully, doing some more stuff with them. Always in touch with them, so we're kind of see what happens.
Cool.
So yeah.
So tell me about your road trip. And we talked about your road trip last time, but you brought us a physical map this time.
Yeah, so I think when I was with you last time, we were talking about doing it, and a good friend of mine, Charlie from college, loves a good road trip, and so we had talked about, well, where should we go? What should we do? It was when I had ordered the car originally and was going to get it in August, and we were going to take it and hit the road right away. Car got delayed to December, pandemic, so on and so forth, so we kind of basically pushed things a year.
And for those of us that haven't heard the first episode, which we have, it is a 2022 or 21?
It is a model year 21.
21 Audi RS6 Avant, which is
the ultimate road trip car.
Yeah, it's the ultimate road trip car.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It was amazing. And so we basically said, well, what more famous road is than Route 66? And we both love that sort of Americana, but then also sort of the abandoned buildings and the open roads and so we're like, get some cool pictures and, it'd just be fun. So just map that out. And then, my wife said, so are you going to like fly out there and then drive or what? And I'm like, fly out? No.
It's a road trip. It's a road trip, honey. We're going on a road trip.
So we did the triangle, basically Seattle to Chicago, Chicago to Santa Monica, which is the route, and then Santa Monica, Seattle. Did 11 days, 5,600 miles. Averaged, I think our daily average mileage was like 505 or something like that. We were not cannonballing it. We were not, trying to break any speed records intentionally. It was just more, just enjoy the time. And it was one of those things where if we saw something cool, we'd double back and go get a picture or go take a look. We had some guidebooks that gave us a rough idea of some stuff we definitely knew we wanted to see and definitely places we wanted to stop. But yeah, once we got to Chicago, which was the official start point of the route, just headed out and had a tremendous time.
I want to talk through this a little bit, but when you and I were talking, and we'll take a good picture of the map to kind of show people, and then some of the other the state by state maps. But I want to talk about Kansas and it's the way it's it's in the Route 66. So talk to me a little bit about that. Yeah,
so the Kansas story is kind of fascinating. So when they originally were designing the route back in the 20s, all the states basically had to advocate to be a part of it, and those who were sort of forward-thinking realized, that this would be a huge opportunity, a boon for tourism. It'd be a boon for just, everything for them as a community. So Kansas was lobbying super hard. Their Secretary of Transportation or whoever it was at the time, you must come through Kansas. We're going to throw a lot into this, So as you're coming down the route, Kansas is just a little hook in the corner of the state. 13 miles long is it. But those 13 miles, I was telling you before we got on air, tremendous. Like the road's got pavement painted, Route 66 painted on the road.
In Kansas of all places.
Yeah, they've got flags on the light posts. I mean, you immediately know, you're in Kansas and it's Route 66. Like they just celebrate. It's like almost like cannons going off as soon as you pull in. And then they've got a little display where the inspiration for Tow Mater from the famous Cars Pixar movie is.
Yep.
And then as well as a gas station that also was one of the things that Pixar picked off.
I didn't realize, so I was looking at your maps, especially the state maps, like how much Cars was influenced. I knew it was influenced by Route 66, but some of these, the state maps, which again, we'll take a photo of, it's just incredible. The landmarks and things that they just took and went, yep, here we go. Yeah. Like Arizona teepees. Yep, there we go.
Yeah. The town Radiator Springs is based off Peach Springs.
Yes.
Yeah. Vaguely. And then everything else shoved into it. It's like all the best of Route 66 is put into Radiator Springs in the town. Peach Springs isn't much to look at this day, but it's still pretty cool to drive through.
They did an amazing job. But Kansas was a ton of fun. We rolled up on a hot rod show. Just out of the blue, it was like an hour before sunset.
It's Route 66. Come on. Aren't those great. Everywhere?
And there was a Texaco station that was just been renovated, so they're doing a photo shoot in front of that. And then all these cars, and this one car, flames shooting out of the hood, and the whole thing. It was just tremendous. So that was just a great moment along the route. Another one to call out, and I brought my cheat notes with me so I wouldn't forget to tell you guys some of these things.
You're on a podcast. They can't tell you about cheat notes. Just act like you remembered it.
I just remember all of this. The other highlight would be Eric, Oklahoma. Okay. And if you do a search for this online, you can read a little bit about it and see some of these videos. But the Sand Hill Curiosity Shop. There's a guy named Harley that runs this curiosity shop where everything in the shop is not for sale, but the things you see in there will blow your mind. Just old signs and it's just filled with all this stuff.
So it's a shop you can't shop in, but you're welcome to come in and view. Okay.
That's right. And his shtick was with his wife, they would entertain these tour buses that would come through. So they would do musical acts and basically lived off tips.
Oh, so this is something that was there since the origin of 66.
Well, I think they created this in the 80s.
Okay.
But this town, Eric, Oklahoma, is on the route, and this one building is kind of the only thing in town.
There's 839 people. So, I just looked it up.
It's
population.
It's
booming.
It's crazy.
Yeah. You could film Tremors there.
Yeah.
But we rolled up, and it's one of those super photogenic spots too, where it's got a bunch of cool old signs on the outside of the building and the whole thing. So we rolled up, and it was one of those guidebook things where we're like, let's check this place out. Here's some music. We're like, this is cool. He's got the music blaring. We go in, find out it's not music being played. He's playing the guitar with like a wall of speakers behind him, and he's just in the middle of the room jamming, playing the guitar. And older guy, surviving what we could tell his 3 food groups were Jim Beam, marijuana, and cigarettes, because there were huge Jim Beam bottles
plants,
all over.
You got liquid.
That's right. Huge ashtrays all over the place.
Same.
Oh, man.
There's Cheetos in there somewhere.
There must be,
Yeah.
but crazy. And so he just starts, you could tell he was enjoying life, and started telling us some crazy stories. Definitely wanted us to tip him. So we, ran back to the car a couple times to throw some money in the tip jar. And then he was just telling us these great stories about how in the day, these big tour buses roll through. Since COVID's hit, no one's coming through. But he and his wife would put on these huge elaborate shows, and he showed us some pictures of basically wooden chairs in the middle of the room with, everybody shaking tambourines and getting into it together, and just this hoot and holler.
That sounds amazing. Just so
he said it looked amazing, and he said the foreign travelers were the ones that were the most generous with the tips, of course. Mm-hmm. And he mentioned that a few times to us, and we were like, "Oh, okay."
Hint,
hint,
hint.
Another,
you're in a foreign car, sir.
Yes,
hint,
right.
hint.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. That's right. But that was a fascinating sort of trippy experience, for sure. And I put I tried to chronicle the trip the best I could on Instagram stories, so it's all still up there on my Father Flywheel on Instagram. If you want to see some of these photos, there's just a ton there. So that was a great spot, great photo spot.
What's the weirdest thing you saw on the roof?
Yeah.
Well, that was certainly meeting Harley. Meeting Harley was certainly one of the weirdest moments, for sure.
I took that back way out of Moab into Colorado, all off-road, and I came into this small town right outside of Grand Junction. It's not Grand Junction. It's before you get into Grand Junction, before you get into Colorado National Monument Park. There's this one little, general store.
Is this like Hills Have Eyes, Banjos kind of thing?
No, it was just weird.
Okay.
We pulled up and they've got ice cream and standard little general store from the middle of nowhere, right? And they had this picture of this rooster, which was really cool. We're like, oh, that's a cool picture of a rooster. And they're like, yeah, he passed away. And it was like, we touched on a sore spot by talking about the rooster.
How dare you talk about my rooster, sir? That's just,
we're like, oh, we're sorry to hear that. 5 years ago, this rooster passed away, and it was apparently the staple of this general store was their pet rooster, which just walked
if they had a photo of it, it meant something to them.
Yeah,
honestly.
they were just that was just a cool picture of a rooster, and apparently local artists they sell pictures of this rooster. We bought one. And
okay.
I love small towns for stuff like that.
Sure.
It's what makes them worth going to is the fun stuff you run into, where it's like, we're very sentimental about our rooster. Cool.
Yeah. Some of our best stories from Seamont have been small little towns. I mean, like car washes and stuff like that. It's the best part. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just sort of flipping through. There are a ton of really interesting spots for sure. Where there was one in Arizona called Two Guns. It was
Very
actually
Arizona
the name
name.
of the city. And it's basically now an abandoned, what used to be.
We used to have one gun, and then we got another one. Rename the town quickly.
Right. Basically, it used to be a zoo, like a roadside zoo.
Okay.
So there's all these,
the original Tiger King.
Yeah. Rock formations that are basically the old buildings, and it's just crazy. And then there's abandoned gas stations that have turned into graffiti art, and it's one of the more popular photo spots for people to go. I'd say the Cadillac Ranch, of course, was kind of cool to see that. It was one of those funny things where
that's
in a
one
lot
where
of
they're
the
buried
pictures,
nose down, right?
Yeah,
that's okay.
Yeah, just in a cornfield.
Yeah,
and it's funny because you see some of the photos, you're like, oh, it's kind of cool. It looks like Cadillacs, But then seeing it in person, they don't at all look like cars anymore because they've taken doors and hoods and stuff are all off them now.
Yeah.
But there's also so much spray paint on them that it's just thick with paint.
Yeah.
Super thick. It's just crazy, kind of drippy, just running off. But they've embraced it. There was a trailer selling paint as you walked up.
Yep.
So of course we had to buy some paint and did.
Yeah.
But we got there right at sunset, and that was kind of cool. Get some photos. So, we did our best every time we hit the curio shop and buy a little something. Definitely gassed up everywhere we went. Got a lot of good lunches and meals along the way. most of the hotels we didn't stay in sort of the kitschy Route 66 hotels because we're snobs and needed a gym and
didn't want bed bugs, wanted our Marriott points, so we
hoity-toity Audi owners.
Yes, right. So we did hit a few courtyard Marriotts for our overnights, but all these little small towns basically been bypassed by the highway.
Yep.
Some of them are really trying to embrace their roots and trying to keep things going, and others you can clearly tell they've sort of given up and thrown in the towel as things are just completely abandoned.
This would be a good story for an animated movie, gets surpassed. Okay.
Yeah,
write that down.
That's a good idea.
Write that down. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of times where the route is basically just like a frontage road to the highway. So you're right next to it. And so we would just jump off and go on that and go a little faster and have a little more fun. And then I was telling you sort of a highlight too would definitely be Sitgreaves Pass. Have you been there?
Which one?
Dan, Sitgreaves Pass.
Where's
so
that?
It's the basically at the border, Arizona, California.
Oh yeah, many times. Yes, yeah.
That just is. Was
I knew you'd
one
been
of the
there.
most amazing roads I've ever been on, and it's the original Route 66 route. That just winds up. It's sort of a lane and a half wide, and you kind of go through basically a neighborhood, and then the next thing you know, you're in a mountain pass, and then you get up over it, and the view just opens up. And we got there like an hour before sunset, and my buddy Charlie whipped out his drone and got some footage. And you guys were talking about cameras during your tip there. We had intentions of putting the GoPro on and doing a bunch of that, but once we got going, we kind of forgot about it.
Yeah, no,
it's so easy to forget about.
I have to make a point to do it now, and like I said, I hardwired it on the Raptor. It's actually stuck to the bumper, and then I have a USB-C hardwire so that because I'll forget it if I don't, and now I can just remote in and turn it on. But it's like it was a process to make me remember. I think I have a photo of my GTR on that pass actually from the first time I hit it.
Yeah,
and it
was incredible.
How was the police presence on Route 66?
Well, interesting you asked that. So I did invest in a detector before we left. And that was more, again, we weren't trying to cannonball ourselves, but just for protection.
Yeah, you got to have fun.
And
I'm imagining the classic old school cop sitting behind the sign, sleeping, eating a sandwich. Kind of thing.
Surprisingly, didn't see any.
Oh.
The detector, I think, went off twice on the trip and saved us both times. And one of those was just on our way over to Chicago. And then another was, I forget what state we were in, might have been Kansas, just at night. So there were a couple spots where we kind of did a push at night and drove a couple hours in the dark and kind of missed some stuff just to get to our next destination. But yeah, the small town sheriff didn't see a lot of those, but a lot of cars, sheriffs with the eyeballs in the windows and as display vehicles, but not a lot of presence. And then a lot of the small towns you roll into, they're just thrilled to see you. They just are so excited that you're there. The first sort of stop we made and just outside Chicago was one of the more famous garages that had been renovated. And there were these four guys just sitting there in rockers. And I rolled up, and they're like, what's that thing? And so we had to tell them about the car. But then they were just telling us all these great stories. And I'm like, oh, we love it. And then one guy said, yeah, we're volunteers. We're only supposed to volunteer for 4 hours. But I find myself sitting here for 8 hours because I just love meeting all you people. And they're just hanging out, retired guys hanging out, meeting all these road trip guys.
Yeah.
And they have these great stories. And, so we throw some money in the tip jar and get some pictures and move to the next spot. But they're just thrilled to see you. So pulling off for an ice cream cone or grabbing a quick sticker to throw on the garage sticker display, it's definitely worth it.
Stickers and magnets?
Yeah.
Yep. That's my tradition as well. I love the small town stuff, and that's generally been our experience in every trip we've taken. We always have a hard and fast and very, very firm rule. It's my number one rule in every rally is that we never speed into small towns. Under no circumstances, you see that speed limit sign, you're going the speed limit into a small town. We are never there to cause trouble. Obviously, we have some canyons and back roads to go through, and we have a good time. Won't BS anyone and say we don't because we're enthusiasts.
Yeah.
But when it comes to small towns, a good rule in general, as long as you don't speed in, they're always happy to see you, and that's always been our experience. No matter who's with us, no matter what race or anything you are,
it's easy to find you too in a small town. You pull in with a bunch of exotic cars. People are like, yeah, it was you. Oh no, it wasn't us.
Yeah, we travel with I've heard that from. I'm speaking to a much larger audience. I've heard that from people that diversity is something they worry about as they travel the U.S. And we have traveled with a very diverse crowd in our rallies. Our friend group is very diverse, and it has never been a problem.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure it's out there. I'm not denying that. But in general, traveling the U.S. by car is a fantastic experience for everybody. It's
so
one of the best ways to see the country.
It's so great. And it was funny when we pulled into that first stop in Dwight, Illinois at the Texaco. The guys thought we were crazy because they saw the license plate from Washington. They're like, you guys came from Washington? We're like, oh, yeah, we just drove across. And like, oh,
woke up this morning and decided to do this.
Yeah, then we told them how much time we had allotted to do it. And they're like, you guys are crazy. Think you're going to do, like, well, we're not going to see every single thing.
Right.
I think if we were to do it again, or if we wanted to see every single thing, you could have easily doubled the amount of time. But we did it 11 days, shave off 3 of those days to get there. I think it was plenty of time. We saw kind of the stuff we wanted to see. We met some really interesting people, saw some great, cool small towns, got some great photos of some stuff. There are a couple hot spots I think we'd go back to and spend a little bit more time in, like Grease Fast, for example. I'd do that 3 or 4 times maybe.
Oh, man,
I think I left something back there. I got to go back,
There's some places I could send you that you will want to move to just to drive the roads.
Yeah.
But, You ever heard of an app called Here Here?
No.
So it's HEARHERE. And
Okay.
what it does is it tracks you. You put it on your phone, it tracks your location, and they give you like usually about 1 to 5 minute clip. And when you pull into certain locations, if there's an interesting fact, it'll play it like a podcast. And if you're doing a really long road trip,
that's cool.
It even works really well locally. And it's the subscription's a little high for me, if I'm being honest. But if I was doing a road trip, I might do like a month, just so I could pull something up. And even if you're driving in the middle of nowhere, it's actually pretty interesting because you'd be surprised what happened where you are, especially when you're going to places like the Dakotas or something where that's where you went. You don't know flyover states until you've driven through South Dakota. But they exist. They're flyover states for a reason. But there's a lot of interesting stuff that happened there, and so it's a cool app to check out if anybody's doing a road trip.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I'm working on it right now. Have you ever used Google My Maps? Not Google Maps. Google My Maps, the actual My Maps function.
Well, when we did the route, we baked it into Google I thought it was on My Maps, but maybe I'm wrong. Like we plotted the course and saved it under my user ID. Is that
So
similar?
you can connect different routes, different layers though. So Google notoriously has a problem that I'm fighting them for, which is they have a 10-stop limit on their maps. You can only plot 10 points, and if I'm doing a whole trip, I want a whole view. Now if you look at something like the Washington Backcountry Discovery Route, for example, you look at that on My Maps and it shows you the entire route all at once. And what they've done is they've created custom tables that show different sections. And when you do what that works really well for with these giant road trips is you can stitch it all together and see your day-by-day layers and then show like an all-at-once view to see the whole thing. Makes it really, I won't say easy because it was easy when you could just use Google Maps and do the whole thing at once.
Yeah.
And we've talked about a tip called morethan10.com, which allows you to stitch together. You can still do it in the command line. You can hack your way through it. It doesn't work very well. But anyway, if you're doing these...
For all of us that know how to get into the command line, I actually do know how to do that because of him. But
it's handy for doing these big trips. But if you do My Maps and you want to actually really record your trip, share it with a big group, I'm working on converting all of the Dance Drive stuff to this so you can see them all in a global map. But for these big road trips, I've used it here and there. I'm on the never-ending search to find the ultimate road tripping software.
Please let me know if you find it, man. The A to B stuff, they do a great job of. But stitching together multi-point stuff was impossible. We were impressed, though, how much the route actually came up on our drive.
Yeah.
Like you could see it on the map. It was labeled 66. And so oftentimes we found ourselves off the route by accident. We're like, oh, let's get back over there. So we just shoot off over it. But, I was just trying to plot a route just around here, Highway 20 for the spring. But, of course, it's closed now because of the snow.
It won't let you do it.
Both Bing Maps and Google Maps won't let you mark it right now. I'm like, I just want to find the distance.
All they have
to
do is add one tab that says, when are you leaving, like in Waze, and be like, I'm leaving in June. Oh, then we'll show it to you.
That's right. That's right. Or see it without traffic, data or whatever else. It's crazy. But no, most of the states, on the route had signage that said, historic 66. It was pretty clear about where you were. As I mentioned, some states...
most of those signs get stolen regularly.
Yeah. Well, some states were a lot more clear, as I mentioned, with, painting on the road, its surface itself, or signs. Some towns really celebrated it with flags and other things like that. And then others you kind of had to double check yourself and make sure you were kind of on the route.
Was there an overall consecutive information of why the route was there and why it was chosen? Not the side of the road signs and things like that, or I mean, is it built into the maps? It says this is why they did this, and kind of the history of the road.
The story? Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's a lot. We didn't do a ton of that reading, I will admit, but have learned some since we did the trip, and then some of the guidebooks we have in the maps definitely go into some of that detail. And a lot of it was just simply to help build a route out of the bitter cold Midwest through the Dust Bowl to get people out to the coast. And at that time in the 20s and 30s, there was a big movement to get people west. And so they felt that this was a southern route was the best route. And a lot of the states, as I mentioned, basically had to kind of advocate to be a part of it. And so there was a huge push to kind of make that happen state by state. And then each state had to basically kind of put in their amount. And then there were a number of realignments through the years. So in the 60s, there was a realignment where some new roads were built. There were portions of it. There's still a portion of it now that's unpaved. So there's sections that are unpaved. We found ourselves in Texas on this one part where we're like, oh, I guess we're on dirt now. We're like, well, hey, it's Quattro. Let's go.
Exactly. So here we go. Yeah.
Got good and dirty on that little section. But and it was just basically driving on a dirt farm road, but it was the route. So we're like, well, let's just do it and see. And then they did another realignment, in the 70s. And then when the interstate system really got kicking, that's when that basically I forget the year that it officially canceled. I want to say it was like early 80s where it was officially this is no longer an official route.
Right.
Now it's, I-40 or I-50 or whatever the replacement routes were.
Now it's historic Route 66.
And now it's historic Route 66, and they have a whole, association around that where they do fundraising, and the different states try to do different levels of engagement and keeping the thing alive. Pixar pumped a ton of interest back into it, which was really great for a lot of those local economies. And brought a lot more attention back to the route. But yeah, it was popularized, in the 20s with a lot of songs and music, and then of course literature as well. So there was a ton of references to it, and it became sort of this thing that people just had to do or wanted to do, and it became a major route for people to move, but then also to just explore.
And I know this is a big question. How was the pavement? I mean, obviously, a lot of places are going to repave things and try to keep it nice. But did you run into sections, minus the dirt roads, or where you're going,
No, fortunately
shattering
not.
Your teeth?
There were a couple sections that the quote unquote old route was right next to us, and you could see it was all cracked up and weeds are coming through the cracks and stuff. But then the pavement right next to it that we were on was silky smooth.
Nice.
There was no real problem. And then there's portions of it where you're actually on the interstate, where the interstate kind of went right over where the original route was. And of course, those are nice and smooth.
Yes.
The other thing you appreciate is how the rest of the country really has some good roads. Like Illinois, I'd say,
not so much.
Washington, everything else in between, pretty smooth and amazing. Like no huge big holes, big, it was the potholes were non-existent except in Washington and in Illinois, surprisingly. But it was it was nice and smooth. The only concerns I had going into it were tires, because the tires unfortunately are hard to come by on this car. So I was worried we'd be in the middle of nowhere and need to get new tires, and then a windshield crack. And fortunately, neither of those became issues at all.
That must be nice.
You're not driving with Dan, so your windshield's fine.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Well, I did hear your tip about what to do if you get a chip, and throw the little sticker on there until you get to a place. But it was great. And then we made the whole trip without any infractions from the law, or at least getting caught infraction. But then
Allegedly.
2 weeks later, I got something in the mail. Where I got a photo of us in, I want to say it was in, where were we? Ohio, maybe, on an overpass that the radar detector didn't pick it up, and we got caught took a little picture of us. So
Nice.
And we weren't that, I think it was 70 and a 60 or something.
Oh.
Nobody would drive this car from Washington. That's not us.
Yeah, that's right. How
you
can
insane?
you prove I was in there?
Yeah.
But the great thing was, I've had one of those before here in Washington, and it was quite expensive. The one I got was like $45. I'm like, oh, okay, no problem.
You're like, there you go.
Cash or check, sir. Yeah.
You're like, that's fair.
Yeah. So, I was doing that. Yeah.
So, and the weather was great. We just had one sort of rain squall we drove through, and then once or twice it rained overnight, but not while we were driving. The weather was really great.
What time of year was this? Did you say?
September.
Okay, yeah.
End of September.
That's the perfect time. People ask me on road trips, and I always say after the kids go back to school.
Yes.
It empties your national parks,
yes.
which are still full all the time because of COVID. But now, like that, as soon as the kids go back to school, that second week, what is that, after Labor Day?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that week after Labor Day. That's when you get out there.
Yeah, we took my son to school, just left for college down at Oregon State. So we dropped him off on like the 20th, and then Charlie and I left on the 21st of September.
Nice.
And it was great.
Your wife's like, there's nobody home.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
In retrospect, not the best timing. But that was a great week. And then we got back.
Saying so much there, sorry. Why did you leave me? I didn't. Oh, geez. Coming home.
Yeah, I'll be home 10 days. I'll be right back.
Hydrate.
But it was great. Those last week and a half of the month of September was perfect. Kind of shoulder season weather, like you said. No kids out on the roads because of school. Everybody's in school, so it was great. So now we're just thinking about where we're going to do this year and what might we go. But
oh man, I'll send you a route that'll change your life.
Yeah,
I have. I call it the best road trip in the world, and it's, in my experience, the best thing I've ever done in my life.
All right.
I've done it 3 times.
Well, I was telling him about when you picked up the Land Cruiser and went from Florida and came up here. I mean, you did that a little fast, but...
Yeah. That was still great, though. It was fun because it was, I think just went everywhere I wanted to. But, I've got
we've talked about that, corner to corner, Key West, and just kind of do that. But Banff is on the mind. A couple
done
other...
that one 3 times, it's a great drive.
Yeah.
A little difficult now because of the highway closures, but you can still get around it.
No, it's easy. There's no trucks on the road.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. We're not talking about that. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's funny. Let's take our next break. We'll be right back. I want to talk to you a little bit more about a few other things on your resume that we haven't talked about. We'll be right back.
Grandpa, what do you call this thing again?
It's a 66 Ford Bronco.
I think you got ripped off.
Why is that, honey?
It's got no Wi-Fi, no USB port, no Bluetooth.
Exactly. I guess we'll just have to talk.
Sometimes the best way to connect is to disconnect.
Is that the window button?
It's called a window crank.
Cool. The faster I move it, the faster it goes down.
This moment of escape was created by Haggerty.
Being old is kind of cool, Grandpa.
Works for me.
For people who love cars.
And we're back. One of the road tripping, everybody, if you didn't catch that already, go do that. If you need a hand, let me know. Check out Dan's Drives. It's on our Rain City Supercars website. But I've done and plotted many a trip for many people around the U.S. So let me know if you need a hand. But I want to talk to you about something else you did, since you seem to be doing everything all the time. How was your Bring a Trailer experience? I wanted your Audi.
Yeah, thank you for asking. So I have, or had, I guess I should say, an 85 Audi Coupe GT, which many people think is the Quattro because it looks a lot like the Quattro, but it's not. It was Audi's sort of alternative, lower-priced front-wheel drive car at the time.
I didn't know that.
Produced in the mid-'80s. I think 83 to 88, if I remember correctly. I bought it 3.5 years ago from a guy out in upstate New York who, as his daughter called it, it was the ice cream car. So it was his wife's daily for a number of years, and then he just put it in the garage and would take his daughter to get ice cream in it every Sunday.
That's adorable.
So I bought that and brought it out here and loved it. Called myself sort of the curator of it, Was planning to keep it probably longer, but COVID, I didn't drive it as much as I probably should have or could have. I had it down in storage at the shop club down in Soto, which was a great experience, but also costing me some money that if I wasn't driving it, it was hard to justify it.
There.
And I've been a long-time voyeur of Bring a Trailer,
As
for
we all have.
10 some years or so ago, a friend of mine introduced it me to it, and it's basically, as we all have experienced, just scrolling, and then getting to the point where I tag, different models or cars, and
bring a trailer, and you tab over to your bank account, and you go back to bring a trailer. Okay,
yeah. Well, it's just been fun to, and then watching some of the auctions, in real time as they close, because they have this policy basically, if in the last minute as it's closing, if another offer comes in, they extend the time. So they keep extending the time essentially till the bidding stops, which is kind of cool. And so I always thought to myself, if I were to sell that car, I would want to do it on an auction platform. And at the time, Bring a Trailer was kind of the only one. Now there's a number of them out there online. Collecting Cars was another one I was considering, but having watched BAT for so long and been sort of a follower of that for so long, I thought, let's try that one instead. Just 2 weeks ago, threw the car up there and kind of wanted to see what happened. Comments immediately started filling up there, questions about why is the VIN number different, and, learning all sorts of interesting things about the VIN number that was stamped on the engine in the engine bay. Had 3 X's in it that on the tab in the windshield were digits and numbers, because they, at the time when they stamp at the factory, we know some of the digits, but those middle ones, that'll be when the car's finished.
Yeah.
And depended on what market it was going to. And so they then finish, the X's then get replaced with letters and numbers that represent what part of the world the car is being sold in. So it was a North American car, so it had a special code that went in there. So people were concerned about, why are they different? And then, of course, some super Audi guy who knew everything chimed in, and then I had to go in and dissect the VIN and went to a decoder and had to show all that, make sure everybody was okay with it. Because I understand buying something sight unseen, I'd be a little nervous about it too.
They're pretty thorough. They ask you to go through a pretty thorough process of documenting the car, correct?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they want to see everything. They wanted to see my title. They wanted to see the repair records. A lot of pictures. Obviously, the more pictures, I think the more pictures you do and the better quality of the pictures are, the better your bidding's going to be. I shot the car because I was told that I would submit some pictures, but then I have a chance to do more. So I sort of shot the car and thought, well, this is good enough to show them, but what I want to put online, maybe I'll put more effort into it. And then when the time came, I'm like, I guess I'll just put those on.
That'll do.
Yeah, that'll do. It works. But yeah, they pretty thorough experience. They put you in touch with one person at Bring a Trailer who, based on the form you fill out, will write your description. And then you get to approve the description. And then once you approve it and you've paid your, I think it was $80, $90, I think I had to pay, was my only expense to put it up there. The buyer then has to pay the fee. They assign you a time of when it's going to go into the queue and when it'll come up. So they basically just corresponded with me back and forth with questions, got everything ready to go, and then told me, here's when it's going to go live, here's when it's going to end. Kind of good luck. And so, of course, people were asking for more stuff. So I took some more pictures, it's funny you were talking about shooting iPhone footage in a car. I did a couple over the shoulder with my iPhone. About halfway through the drive, it starts shaking. Be okay. So it's not the best stuff, but got some of that up there. So bidding closed this last Friday. And watching the final minutes there, it kept climbing. And somebody came swooping in, and who hadn't been involved. And there was one guy who I was actually in touch with who was down in Oregon and was asking me a lot of questions offline about the car. And so he was kind of sitting back waiting, and then he'd strike, and then somebody else would strike. And you can click on the users and see their profiles.
Sounds like the auctions in Forza. I'm not gonna lie. I do that all the time. But yeah.
Sounds fun, kind of.
Yeah, and you can click on the users and see what they've bid on in the past, what they've won, what their comments, how many comments they've made, all that kind of stuff. And so I was clicking on the different users that were bidding, and the one guy, clearly had just signed up or something, had no comments, no bids, no, so I'm like, oh, who's this guy?
Yeah.
Because Bring a Trailer basically is like, okay, we'll put you in touch with the buyer and we're out now. So, deals fall apart all the time, I come to learn. So I was sort of just fingers crossed that everything would go smoothly. And then the winning guy sort of swooped in, got it right the last minute. The guy in Oregon didn't get it, but emailed me right away and said, if the deal falls through, please let me know. So I have a backup.
That's nice.
And then I found out the winning bidder is actually a guy in Munich, Germany.
Wow.
Okay.
So I'm like, wow, okay, you really wanted this car. And he told me that he had one when he was a student and always loved them and wanted to have another one.
Okay.
And looking at his profile, he has some other great cars or had bid on some other great cars. I'm like, okay, this guy seems like he wants it. So as soon as the money got wired, I'm like, okay, it's real. So I was just down at the shop today, packing the car up, getting it ready to go. I'm waiting to hear from his shipping company. And then I basically pass the car off to them and get some copies of some paperwork and send it to him, and it's all done.
It's amazing how much easier that has become. Like the idea of doing that even 5 years ago was a tense nightmare for a lot of people. And now it's almost become commonplace to get cars from overseas.
Does it go in a shipping container and go that way, or how does it?
That's how he's going to do it.
Okay.
Yeah. And so from what I understand, local shipper's going to pick it up, take it to the shipyard, load it in whatever container they load it in, and he'll see it in a month, 2 months. He doesn't really know.
Yeah.
But I have to sort of document everything for him. And, of course, I'm throwing in a bunch of manuals and a bunch of other, extra parts and all that kind of stuff. And he said, I have to document all that because if it disappears, I need to know.
Washington State pine saw thing from the me or something. Something.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, something like
that. That's right.
Yeah.
That's
funny.
So it was, all in all for me, I'd say, 9 out of 10 star review on the process. It was pretty simple and smooth. And
sweet.
I think once the car's out of my hands officially, I'll feel better about it. But the money's been transferred. Bill of sale's been signed.
Yeah.
Haven't signed over the title yet. Just waiting for the shippers, waiting on that day before I sign that paperwork. But so I hope he enjoys it. It sounds like he's going to keep it. He made an offer to me if I'm ever over in Germany, I can come drive it, which would be kind of fun. Yeah. And he'll be, a lot closer to the factory. So I think he can probably get some of those random parts a lot easier than I can. So
time to do some European delivery on something. Just saying, a Porsche
that's what I wanted to do with the RS6.
Yeah.
But they can't. Audi
COVID,
canceled that program. No, Audi doesn't do factory delivery anymore.
Oh, not at all.
As of today, it's much better to go do European delivery on Porsche. Considering we have a friend who had they not done European delivery, the boat car was going to be on was on fire.
Yeah. Oh, I read about that today. Yeah.
So, European delivery. It still has to go on a boat to get over here, but
yeah. Were you happy with the price you got?
Yeah. So it sold for $9,100. When it was in the last minute and the numbers were climbing, I'm like, oh, maybe we'll get to 10. That was kind of exciting.
You'll probably double that shipping it to Germany, but yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But happy with that for sure. It was more than I thought I would do. My car, as I like to call it, the car math for me was how much I paid for it. Mm-hmm. If I get that back, I'm good.
Yeah.
My wife said, no, you're not. How much did it cost to ship it over here? And then because I was nervous, I flew to see it, before I got it. So I flew to New York.
So she added that into the cost.
So she's like, well, you got to add that in.
This is how much it really costs.
And then how much was it down at the shop all these
How much was it? I don't want to tell you.
Yeah. So the number got a lot bigger, but I still, with the $9,100 hammer price, I more than broke even. I made a few $100 on it.
And you had the enjoyment of owning it, which counts.
And the enjoyment of owning it, right? And I think it's Magnus Walker who says it's all about the smiles for miles, right? It's like this. As long as you were happy with the experience, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I'm glad I didn't lose a bunch of money on it, and I did more than break even on it, so I'm happy with that. My car math, I doubled my money, but car math
we've all lost money on cars. It's just who that you're related to at the time knows if you lost money.
Yeah.
Did you lose money? No, of course not. Yeah, exactly.
I was speaking on Avance today. My 911 Turbo S is back up for sale, and it's at the McLaren dealer in Bellevue over here. The guy who bought it from me, really great guy over in Yakima, he traded it in on a 720, which I'm like, quite the upgrade. Great car. But it's funny because I've been honest with that car. I bought it for just over 105 when I picked it up in Delaware, and I drove it all the way home. Had an awesome time with it. Put just over 23,000 miles on it in a year, and I sold it for right around 90,000. So I spent $15,000 on the car in the year, plus a set of tires, brake caliper paint, and that's basically all I did to the car. The rest was under warranty. It was still a CPO car. And they have it listed for sale with 54,000 miles on it. I sold it with 47,000 miles on it. They have it listed for sale for $135,000 McLaren Bellevue right now.
I mean,
Which I sold it pre-COVID
That's
craze.
insane.
I sold it before the craze, so I didn't I was like, okay, that many miles I put on the car, that much fun I had with it, with the like that was a totally fine deal for me. Like, super easy transaction. Guy, met me at the bank. Here you go. Have a nice day. That's it. Super easy. But the prices they're getting for used cars right now blow my mind because they're probably going to get it.
It's not just exotics. We were talking about it. Like,
no.
My old Crosstrek is selling for $7,000 more than it was new with 26,000 miles on it.
Yeah,
and it's worth it.
Well, I just saw
my Raptor is worth more than what I bought it for after tax.
I just saw a headline that used car sales are up 40% from last year. It's just unbelievable.
I think it'll stay that way for about this year, and I think it'll start dropping off.
Well, I was just talking with somebody about this the other day. Like, I feel like the dealers are getting a taste of this now. So how are they ever going to go back? Like, because
people
they're
are
looking at it and they're like, well, this is some good money right here.
People are going to refuse to buy. I think
You think
eventually
so? At some
somebody's
point that's going to catch up with demand.
Yeah.
We had a good talk about that with the Haggerty Garage and Social Chat and with the Vaughn's. I've talked to a couple people about this. It's like, so you have cars priced at MSRP, and then you have the ADM, a dealer markup. And so they're priced at a certain MSRP so that when people shop for them, they can cross-shop with other vehicles in that area. Then you find the one you want. Like, oh, I really want that new Bronco, and it's only $60,000 for the one I want. Well, and you're like, well, that's about the same price as a totally fully loaded, Jeep Wrangler or a TRD Tacoma. They're all right around in that range. Not enough to deter someone. That $3,000 to $4,000 difference isn't going to deter somebody from a car in that price range. Well, then you get in, you've already set your heart on that Bronco, right? You're like, yeah, that's the one I want. It's totally within my price range. Well, now it's a $20,000 dealer markup.
Yeah.
So that $6,000 Bronco is $80,000, and nobody's cutting you a deal, if you can even get it.
And you're going to convince the bank that you need extra money.
And then you go to that Toyota deal, and you're like, well, that's out of my price range now. And they're like, yeah, but this one's only a $15,000 adjusted dealer markup. So they're taking in that money because they can get it. And for me, it priced me out of the cars that I really wanted to buy, to the point where I'm like, there's a happy medium for me where I am that death before ADM person, as in the car will die before I buy it. Like, I will not pay ADM on a car, period. I don't care if I'll have to wait 3 or 4 years. Like, it'll kill the joy for me to overpay for it.
Yep.
And so I don't know how sustainable it is. I know exactly what you're saying. That was the thing. Porsche is notorious for this. I gladly throw them under the bus as a former Porsche owner, that you buy a new GT3, they're like, yeah, we'll let you allocate it to you. We'll let you get your order in. But if you want to take delivery, you owe us another $40,000,
right?
$50,000, $100,000 on an RS WiSec package car.
Yeah.
And it's like, at least Ferrari tells you they're going to bend you over before they do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I
was
do not like
talking
the
to
trend.
another dealer last week, and he was saying that they're getting so many calls from out of state now too. And the number one question is, how much over sticker is it? And they weren't marking stuff up that much, and so they're like, well, we kind of have to now because the competition, like everybody is.
Yeah.
So. Or you corner the market and you only mark up half of what everybody else is doing, and then get everybody to come there. But
yeah, that too.
I mean, and I will say this, preface this, Carter Motors is a sponsor, but I mean, there was no markup.
Yeah.
The price was what Subaru said it was, and that's what they sold it to me for, and
you have much better luck on mass market cars.
Yeah.
Anything specialty though, you'd be, if you get a specialty car of any kind at MSRP, count your blessings right now, because that's all you're going to get. If you get a C7 or a C8 Corvette at MSRP, you got the deal of the century right now, or a Wrangler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was down at Barrett Jackson this year with my dad. I had a great time. It was first time there in person. I'd been there when I worked with Forza on we did a display down there when I was just there on the setup day, and I didn't stay for the auction itself. Was down there with my dad. It had a great time, and it was amazing though to see the Broncos, the old ones, how much those were going for. But then they had 4 or 5 new ones that had 15 miles on them, and they were going for $110,000. You're just like, oh my God.
Ford didn't put that stupid thing they did with the GT owners that said you couldn't sell it. Right?
No, but they're going. But Ford's going after their dealership network pretty hard right now because of the markup situation. They're really concerned
they're pricing
about that.
people out of them. I mean, I was somebody that put in my. It was only $100. I was in there, and he kept pushing the date back and pushing the date back and pushing the date back, and it's like,
Now you don't get a delivery date, and you pay more.
I would still be a year out, and I missed, like, I put my deposit down like 7 days into when you could go on the website and order it, and I still would be a year out from here now.
Yeah,
so.
That's just crazy.
But there are some out there that I think the reason the market is flooded by them right now is because a lot of people wanted the hardtop, and you can't get it, obviously. So they put a lot of them have come back on the market, and there's some of them. There was one on a local Ford dealership that was selling. There wasn't much of a markup on it, but it wasn't really fully loaded. But so
yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's insane. Yeah.
Justin, thanks for coming back. We really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me. It's always a joy to just chat cars with you guys. So
I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with next, and I'm sure we'll have more to talk about.
I'm serious. I want to go do Route 66. I mean, no joke.
Okay.
I want to do it.
I know a killer way to get there.
Just seeing the map made me just absolutely. I don't know why I've never had that passion, but I want to do it.
You would love that. There's so much nostalgia and history there, and you love that stuff.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I love that old crap. I'm sure we could go see the world's giant, like frying pan and all the other stuff, right?
Ball of twine.
Ball of twine. Yeah.
Do not do the world's biggest ketchup bottle, though. I'll tell you that was not worth a stop.
Okay.
I pulled over and we're like, really? This is lame.
I do like ketchup. No.
Well, there were a few things I mentioned just real quick. I did mention to you that are in some of the guidebooks, and you look at it and you're like, oh, that looks cool. Let's stop there, and it's gone already. So it's just stuff is deteriorating, stuff is leaving. It's sad to see.
Cadillac Ranch is probably going to be gone. Or what is it called? Is it Cadillac Ranch?
Yeah,
that'll probably be gone soon, just because people will take.
Well, no, there isn't much more to take. It's just they're just not identifiable as cars anymore. They
just strip down frames and spray paint.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. Yeah. But no, I highly recommend the trip. Had an absolutely great time. If you go to my Instagram, I threw up some photos of the guidebooks we used and the maps we used. We complemented old school paper maps with Google Maps, and it was a great combo. Had a great time. Highly recommend the trip.
Right. We will leave links to your Instagram, which people should check out. It's a really great feed, not just for road trip photos, but for all the other stuff you're doing, which any enthusiast would love. Speaking of enthusiasts and things to do, we've got the 19th. We've got Avant's Tech Session with Common Fibers, 10 to 12:30. And, of course, the off-road event, which we will be at. That is from 10 to 3 for spectators. We will be there a little bit early, of course. Lots of stuff coming up next week. Avant's Ladies Tech Session with Stu's Self-Service Garage. Always popular, always full. That's from 6 to 8 p.m., and then the 24th, 25th, 26th, and I think 27th as well is the Portland International Auto Show. So check that out as well.
Yeah. Auto shows don't do it for me anymore. I'll be honest with you. Like I remember going as a kid and it was so much fun, but like I don't know, it's just not, it doesn't have the.
Well, look out the window of Haggerty Garage.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying like it's not like it used to be. I feel like it's not. I mean,
with you.
I would go to and I'm wondering, and it probably will be. I would go to the International Auto Show. I want to see the new Raptor Bronco.
Oh, you want to see that too?
I bet that in the Everglades. I'm sure that's touring, so I would like to see that.
Yeah, that should be really cool.
So that I can plan for Gen 2 in 47 years or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's like my 50th birthday present.
Yep. Pretty much. 50th birthday
available.
present. Yeah. I'll take a 2023 Bronco Raptor for my 50th birthday in 8 years. Price will be good. So, again, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. Can't wait to see you again. Yeah. For this episode of Rain City Supercars, I'm Nick.
I'm Dan, and don't just get there. Enjoy the drive.